Hello and welcome to today's Marketing Monday session. I am Naveen Singhal, Chief Experience Officer, Tech Plus Media CXO TV, and your host for today. Welcome to another captivating episode of Marketing Monday, where we unravel the secrets of successful marketing strategies. Today, we have a distinguished guest joining us by the fireside. Please welcome Sakshi Chadha, the Director of Brand Strategy and Corporate Marketing at Glance. Sakshi brings a wealth of expertise in building strong brand foundations and driving local. In this chat, we will explore the art of brand strategy and its pivotal role in establishing a solid frame for sustained growth. Sakshi will share her insight and experiences on how organizations can develop compelling brand strategies that resonate with their target audience, differentiate from competitors, and foster meaningful connections. Please be with us in this fireside chat as we dive into the world of brand strategy with Sakshi Chadha. We'll uncover the key elements of an effective brand strategy, discuss practical steps for implementation, and explore how brands can maintain a consistent and authentic presence throughout their journey. So grab a seat, sit back, and get ready for an enlightening discussion on the art of brand strategy, building a strong foundation for long-term success, featuring Sakshi Chadha. Hi Sakshi, welcome to our Marketing Monday session.
Thank you, Naveen. It's wonderful to be here. Looking forward to the session.
So, Sakshi, there are a lot of questions that are there in the mind of beginners. They talk about various things. So, as the topic suggests, we would be talking about the art of brand strategy. So, how would you define the concept of brand strategy and why it is crucial for organizations to establish a strong foundation in today's competitive landscape?
So, Naveen, that's an interesting question that you put out there. And even the topic, I think, for discussion is very interesting today. I think brand or brand strategy, as you put it, right? A framework in terms of what your brand vision, purpose, promise should be and how you should position your brand for any organization is a very critical aspect of how organizations take, leaps towards a successful long-term, viability, so to say. There are several components of a very good brand strategy that organizations can apply as depending on the life stage that they are in. But irrespective, if you're starting a new organization or you're launching a new product or a new brand in the market, it is very important to have a framework that can help guide how you would, take your brand out to market. And this involves multiple, various levels that you need to go through before you arrive at an architecture that can be relevant for your brand. Some of the key contours of this, building the right brand strategy are very basics, right? And it will sound theoretical, and I might be repeating some of this, but it's important, irrespective of beginners or us, even with people after decades of experience. Basics is what, the first principle approach is what sets you right to do anything in your life or your career, right? So the basic principles of this is starting from, what is your target audience? What is it that you're building for, right? Finding that right white space for your brand in that large competitive landscape that you have out there, right? Figuring out who your competitors are, figuring out what that gap or area or space that your brand can take, which will help you then define hopefully the right positioning for your brand. And that could be in the space of, depending on the nature of your brand or the product that you're launching, it could depend on the functional sort of the 5 Ps, it could be on a product or a pricing or a category differentiation that you would want to position your brand on. Or it could be something that you would want to index on in terms of what would my brand deliver as an end goal or an end benefit for the user. And then potentially working on, the right aspects of the entire archetype of the brand, right? What would it stand for in terms of value systems, in terms of functional benefits, in terms of emotional benefits? What should the personality of the brand look like so that audiences can relate better to you? And then hopefully, possibly a persona that people can sort of look up to, sort of engage with as your brand sort of comes to light. And a very key pillar before you start this exercise of putting together a brand map or a brand key for your brand is ideally, depending on the nature of your organization, is hopefully have a very clear vision and purpose. So this is the most critical aspect of possibly putting together, before you get on to individual aspects of what your brand could mean for users, is putting together the right purpose or vision statement for the brand, because everything sort of stems from there for any organization, right? So if you can build the reason why you're possibly launching a product, a brand, or an organization, because everyone from your internal stakeholders to your external stakeholders are going to align to that vision, and that's what they will empathize with or connect with. And unless that vision or purpose is strong enough, the likelihood of everything else sort of falling through becomes more difficult. So yeah, these are several aspects of what a brand strategy could entail. It could be to a specific product. It could be at a corporate, strategy that you are defining for a corporate organization or an independent brand that you're launching in the market. The steps likely will be the same, but it all stems from hopefully having a clear vision, purpose that you are going out in the market for, and then getting into developing a detailed brand key of what your brand means, having a very strong insight, why do users would need it, who's the right target audience, finding the right positioning, and hopefully then getting into factors like what should the brand look like, the mnemonics, the visual identity, the personality, the values, and so on. So yeah, hopefully, I hope I answered your question.
Yes, you have answered it very beautifully, I would say. And you have mentioned about the vision and the brand positioning. What are the other major challenges organizations face in defining and executing their brand strategies?
So I think getting everyone aligned to a single vision and purpose, I think that's one of the hardest charters that any organization would get to. A lot of times it has to sort of be, and getting people to align with what is your core belief as to why why you're putting on a brand in the market, or why you're creating a certain solution or a product in the market. I think it's not an easy thing to do. There are tons of ideas out there, but ensuring that people believe in that vision and the presentation of it needs to be powerful enough that, everyone wants to come together and be able to build and solve for a problem statement together. So I think one of the biggest challenges is that one, at the leadership level, at least the founders or, the core team who's actually building either the business or the brand has a very clear idea of, why they're coming together. What is the reason that, they're building a certain product or brand? And then to be able to frame it in a manner that, people around, like specifically starting from your internal teams, right? That's the first thing. That's the first premise of putting a brand out in the market. If your internal teams believe in that core vision and the philosophy that you want to, take the brand out to market, then likelihood of it sort of translating into your users, customers, all of that will also become, really true. Because you will build for the right reasons. And everyone is sort of solving for a common problem statement. So I think that's one of the biggest challenges a lot of times, depending on, how organizations are structured, their matrix, or, there's a single owner who's actually taking the decision. First, him sort of aligning on what that common goal or vision or purpose for us is, and then sort of bringing everyone together and to be able to frame it in a manner that, everyone right down from the top to, anyone in the organization who's even like closely or even at a length associated with the org or the brand is able to buy into that vision and say, okay, I'm solving for a purpose, or I'm solving for, I'm putting a solution out there which will solve for an X problem statement. And that's the bigger purpose that we're all that's driving us. So once that driving force sort of comes through, I think then becomes a lot more of functional challenges that you may face, which will be, getting the right people in terms of getting the right structure for your brand. How do you put frameworks together so that it's easier for, just your internal teams and even external teams to sort of go out and be able to execute it in a manner that actually is consistent, is clear. There's both consistency, clarity, and so essentially, then it comes down to, once you have the larger alignment, that's the biggest challenges that organizations face. How do you bring everyone together, and how do you enthuse everyone to believe in that one single vision purpose that you want to solve for, and then to be able to translate it out is the next set of challenges, right? Like, how are you paired in terms of the competition? How do you put the basic frameworks in place so there's consistency? Teams can take the same message out across, right? You could be working across countries or across languages, across different segments of audiences that you may want to target. So to be able to maintain that consistency, that clarity of messaging over and repeatedly over years, over months, that becomes the next set of challenge to be able to actually put execution in place. So one is the ideation, the planning, that will always have, different challenges that it will bring forth for you in terms of collaboration, in terms of sort of infusing people, and then to be able to put together frameworks that are easy for people to sort of take it in a manner that, they're able to repeat those over repeated off months, years, and so on. And that's how big brands are built over time, right? You continue to see brands in terms of their identity, their messaging, consistently sort of harping on the same benefits, the same outcomes for you. And that's how you start resonating over a period of time and building connect or empathy for a brand that you like as a user, as an end user. So these are all parts of moving parts of a puzzle that you will consistently, as possibly a brand marketer, will continue to face these challenges as you come into any organization and try to sort of put together a right strategy for your brand.
Sakshi, you are holding a leadership position at your company. So can you share some insights into how Glance has developed and executed its brand strategy to differentiate itself and resonate with its target audience?
So basically, Glance actually entered into a completely new category that was sort of hitherto sort of unexplored before. The vision at the org level, at the founders level, was very interesting. They wanted to sort of solve for very latent intent, right? There is a lot of data and information out there in the world. Today, actually, there is so how do we simplify that overconsumption and make it easier for users to actually use screens or their smart screens to actually consume this information? So the entire thought process sort of stemmed from there. And how do we make products that actually possibly make the user's life simple in a way, uncomplicated, bring them the information that they need without them going into this whole spiral of searching, scrolling, and so on. From that, the evolution of the product or the brand journey started. And I think since we were all sort of, at least at the company level, we were all attuned to sort of working towards that single core purpose that we were trying to solve for. How do we make every moment in a user's life actually meaningful, as opposed to a lot of overconsumption or a lot of meaningless interactions that we do today on the internet? How do we make it more meaningful? How do we make it more joyous? And how can we use screens which were before never sort of thought of, that they can actually transform into experiences? How do we do that? And which is why the lock screen as the product was born, and then more such products that we have sort of evolved over a period of time. So a large part of this exercise was first setting that core vision or purpose as to why and what we are solving for. And thereafter then stemmed, how do we sort of have an entire ecosystem of products or brands that can pick each unique problem statement as part of this larger purpose, and then create relevant brands for each of these. And of course, after that, the standard framework that we spoke about early on in the session, right? Like how each brand will solve for a unique case. There needs to be a very specific insight, a relevant positioning. How does it go out to market? What is the personality, persona? How do users identify with it, and so on? So today we actually have an ecosystem of about 5 to 6 brands under the Glance umbrella, under the Glance corporate umbrella, which is lock screen, which is the home screen and folders. These are all smart surface equivalents. And then we have interesting brands that are solving for consumption use cases, right? Something on live entertainment, which is a completely unexplored sort of space in India and a lot of other countries. We're solving for gaming. We're solving for unique use cases in other areas as well. So it's about getting that philosophy right, and then building the right brand architecture. And hopefully now our strategy into building these unique brands that stand for a solid meaning for users will now over time hopefully pay rewards.
So you have a lot of things in your platter to take care of. So how can the organization ensure consistency and authenticity in their brand messaging and visual identity across various touch points and customer interactions?
That's actually one of the most difficult tasks. Like I was mentioning, that is one of the second biggest challenges, right? Execution is where we all sort of, get bogged down. It is equally tricky as, aligning on that one vision or purpose. There is no sort of easy solves for it. It is a matter of, again, as you said, how do you do consistency? It is consistency. That's the answer, right? So you need the right frameworks, of course, right? Building the right playbooks, building the right guidelines for the team. And then it's a matter of reinforcement time and again, right? And it is not an easy task. Like we struggle with it day in, day out, but it is reinforcing those conversations with the core business teams, the internal teams, and then hopefully with external users, it starts to manifest at the end of it. So there is no easy answer. In terms of consistency begets consistency. So there is no sort of workaround around it.
So how do you approach the alignment of brand strategy with corporate marketing initiatives? Can you share some examples of successful integration between these two?
See, at the end of the day, the brand strategy could apply to various, like we spoke about, right? It could be about a single brand. It could be about a product that you're putting out, or a solution, or it could be, a corporate brand strategy that you're working towards. In Glance's case, we actually are solving for a couple of problem statements. We, of course, have, the corporate, what should the corporate brand stand for, and what is its mission and value and purpose in people's life. And then you have the independent brands that we have under the portfolio, right? And what do they have in each of them mean in an end user's life, and why is it relevant for them? But when you have in a single product, brand, company, and an org, it's an easy space, right? Because people will know you for a product that you are sort of running. But when you are a behemoth, which is actually running a whole ecosystem, and there are, several examples in big tech, in CPG and multiple other categories where you have like corporate behemoths who actually run a whole ecosystem of brands under them. It's important to have a very clear, like I said, obviously a vision at the top, and then an application or a structure or a framework as to how all your different portfolio of brands comes together. And there are different models for actually doing a brand architecture for your brand. I'm sure there's enough and more material available on the internet, so I will not go into a spiel for that. But you have to see what fits well for your brand, what's the problem or solution that you're solving for, and that dovetails into the right strategy. So in our case, the Glance, the corporate brand actually anchors the larger vision and purpose, and it actually has been helping all of our newer brands that we are now developing, right? So the equity of Glance is actually translating into the newer brands that we are now sort of launching and building out. So it's important that you have one, anchor brand or master brand that you sort of build out, that users sort of build an affinity for. And then as your ecosystem sort of grows together, I have a stronger belief. Like, you have multiple examples like that. Tata is one such example. Like, anything that Tata puts out together today, that you have that trust factor that, a brand like that will bring together. Or so that master brand equity then translates down to anything that you do in your ecosystem. There's several examples of corporates in India, across the globe, where if you build an entity which started with one brand, one single promise, and then you build a whole ecosystem around it, because users believe in that original purpose and original vision of the corporate brand, then everything else that you sort of create after that equity sort of translates down. So there are several best practices like that. I've mentioned a case startup. In Glance, we are trying to do that as well. I'm sure there are like several examples like that, which will be people can sort of use as a reference point in terms of how strategy can be very well linked to how your corporate initiatives can go about.
Thank you, Sakshi. And my last question is a little long and a little difficult also. So how do you measure the effectiveness and impact of brand strategy? Are there specific addresses or indicators that organizations should focus on to how to gauge the success of their brand building efforts?
So there are standard metrics, that can be used for measurability. I think these are recorded metrics. It's not any different for any brand. One, of course, is your overall brand awareness score, and there are several methodology that's available in research to be able to measure the outcomes of what you've done. It's important to have the right frequency to ensure that measurement is, again, consistent, because you should know what you like a pre and post sort of an evaluation that you can do before you actually launch, you decided your strategy and actually executed in market. So you have a standard brand track that you can run, which can measure what your top of mind recall for your brand is, what is the response recall, what is the overall awareness, and that's a standard methodology to measure an awareness of the brand. And largely your brand strategy should, that's the largest matrix that you would be driving at an awareness level. Then it's other measures, right? Which, again, depending on what your problem statement and what you're trying to solve for, what life stage, it could be things like NPS, right? You would want to measure how end users are actually using your brand. Would they actually recommend your brand to other people? That's a very good metric to test whether, your brand is actually sort of solving for the problem that you have sort of thought of or envisioned, right? Then there are CSAT. There are multiple other survey mechanisms or feedback mechanisms, loops that you can put into your ecosystem to actually understand whether what you've done from a strategic planning perspective, and once you've executed, that's actually resulting in the right outcomes for you. And this is actually a very key part of strategy as well. Unless you measure, you would not know where you're going wrong, and then to be able to course correct along the way. So these feedback and nuggets are, information loops are very critical for any brand to be able to, before they even start their strategy work, the measurable goals should actually be put in out, and those outcomes should be measured at a regular frequency to be able to take decisions, to, again, course correct or double down on actually working. So yeah, these are like the standard sort of measures. But then depending on, if you're, obviously there are digital measures, sales, revenue, those are all outcomes of if you're doing the things right at branding, hopefully, your sales are seeing a good outcome, your revenue turnovers are great. But those are long-term impact metrics. On immediate brand metrics, these are the 2 or 3 measurable points that you can sort of look at.
Thank you, Sakshi, for such a meaningful insight. And thank you everyone who are watching this video. Thank you, my audience. Catch me live or to the next such budding topics on Marketing Monday sessions.
Thank you so much, CXO TV. It was a great session. Thank you for bringing marketers and consumers and learners and professionals together. You're doing a great job. Wishing you all the very best for your future. Thank you so much again.
Thank you very much, Sakshi. Thank you, audience. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Naveen. It was a pleasure.
For more updates from CXO TV, please like and subscribe to our channel.